back when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s in Scotland, if you had a BMW, you were doing okay for yourself. I mean, most of my friends' parents had things like, you know, Escorts and Cortinas or Sierras and, you know, Astras and Cavaliers, that type of thing. My dad, you know, after a string of Fords, he turned Japanese and had a couple of Mazdas before settling into a lifetime of Toyota ownership. In fact, in our town there was only one BMW. It was an E30 and it was owned by the posh old lady that had the lovely bungalow. But fast forward to now, and they're not really what you would call exclusive BMW. You see, this might surprise you to learn that BMW's market share in the UK in 2024 was larger than Ford's. It was also larger than Vauxhall's and larger than Toyota's. It was also larger than Honda, Citroën, Peugeot, Renault combined. So it's fair to say, as I say, they are a very popular choice now. But that's not to say that the products aren't very, very good. I mean, obviously they must be, because lots of people are buying them. And of course, in terms of their electric offerings, we know how good they have been. In fact, in 2023, we said the BMW i5 was our AutoEV car of the year. But if you want an electric BMW, you don't have to spend £100,000 on a big i5 M60 xDrive. No, because now there is a lead-in model to the popular i4 range, and it is this, the eDrive35. Welcome to this week's road test review. Welcome to the new BMW i4 eDrive35, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we get started on this week's road test review of the new BMW i4 eDrive35, it is of course that time where I'm going to ask you to make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, make sure you've pressed the little bell button that's down below, because then that way you'll get a notification of when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched it, if you do enjoy it, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and don't forget, leave us your thoughts and comments down below. Let me know what you think about the cars that we review, such as the new BMW i4 eDrive35, and of course on the AutoEV channel as a whole. Now, we like the i4 here at AutoEV. In fact, we like it so much that we prefer the sort of like the lower powered eDrive40 over the most powerful M50. And that tends to have been the case with quite a few cars that we've tested. The more kind of higher performance, sort of like, you know, the electric cars go, they're fast, but they're maybe not so much fun. The lower powered ones tend to have a slightly better chassis balance and things like that. So is that going to be the case again here? In other words, is this eDrive35 going to be better than the eDrive40? But as always, before we get started, let's take a quick reminder about the BMW i4 and where the eDrive35 fits in. So the eDrive35 slots underneath the eDrive40 and of course flagship M50 to complete the i4 range. It has a usable battery size of 67 kilowatt hours, which should allow a WLTP range of up to 288 miles on a single charge. It's a single motor car, with drive being sent through the rear wheels with a power output of 282 brake horsepower. And prices start at just under £51,000 here in the UK. So, smaller battery, less range, less powerful, but less money. Is this the one to choose? Well, of course, the only way we're going to find out is by putting it through the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric car, and that is the AutoEV one. So as always, of course, we're going to start with styling, and we'll keep it quite brief because, in fairness, there isn't anything that's really changed over the other i4s that we've tested in the past. They've kept the looks exactly the same. In fact, apart from a little badge on the back, there's no way of knowing that this isn't an eDrive40, that this is the eDrive35. It comes in two trim models, of course, the same as the 40. You either get the Sport or this one, the M Sport. But as always, we'll talk about trims and specs when we get to the pricing section. But I do want to touch on the styling of the car. Now, if you haven't seen our other videos on the BMW i4, I will pop a link up before, because we've driven the M50, we've driven the eDrive40, and we've tested the 40 against its main rivals, the Model 3 from Tesla and of course the Polestar 2. But I think it's worth just kind of catching up with the i4, because believe it or not, it's getting on a little bit now. Of course, we know how quick the electric car world changes. And of course, Polestar and Tesla, they've had a big update. And of course, last year, we saw the introduction of new cars into the sector as well. So the BMW's become almost a little bit of the old stager of the class. But even so, I think we're kind of now getting used to the styling. Well, certainly I am. I don't mind so much now this kind of big, demented, rabbit tooth front grille, actually. I'm getting kind of used to it. We're seeing more 4 Series around. And that's important because what BMW are doing, of course, is they're offering sort of like an electric version of a combustion engine car to get us used to sort of like, you know, when they do move to all electric power. And this is, in essence, a 4 Series Grand Coupe. That's exactly what the i4 is. Of course, you get the nice kind of BMW sort of like lights, the double headlights here that are in between this in a single, that are hidden behind the kind of single pane. There's some really nice sculpting on the bonnet. I really do like, as I say, this kind of bonnet here with the sort of like the kind of the top of the sort of like the double kidneys where the badge then sits in between them, just nestled in there. Of course, you've got the kind of black plastic at the top of the grille, which isn't, but of course down below that's where your cooling happens. So again, it's sort of like BMW styling signature. And as I say, not everyone gets on with it, but maybe it's not as controversial now as, say, some things like the BMW iX still is. There's a nice bit of airflow management that goes around here. You get the sort of the vanes that then direct the airflow into these vents here that take the air around the wheels. And then a reasonable kind of nice kind of front sort of like load air dam there as well. And of course then the number plate inset across the double kidney grills. Blue bezel around the badge, as you usually get, to signify that it's electric BMW, and of course the little I badge as well at the top of that kidney on that side there. But otherwise, it's the same as we've seen before. Again, inside profile, the same, and just the same as I say as a Grand Coupe, except that you get the little kind of, again, the little blue flash around the sort of like the centre caps of the wheels. Talking of wheels, as I say, you get the 2 trim levels, Sport or M Sport. This is an M Sport. 17-inch wheels come on the Sport as standard. You can upgrade to 18s that are on this M Sport or go to 19s option. Personally, I think the 18s are probably the best compromise in terms of ride comfort. But again, of course, when we're driving the car, we'll talk about comfort and chassis dynamics. Of course, you get a little M badge there, signify it's M Sport, and then you get the nice kind of vent here where the airflow just comes out of the side from the wheel arches to reduce the air build-up, the air pressure in that wheel arch and just flow it down the side. This is mineral white, which is a metallic white, which is an option. And I apologise, it is quite dirty because you can see it's a fairly grotty day in February that I'm doing the filming. Flush door handles. Nice there, and of course frameless doors as well because it's the Grand Coupe. And you get that kind of nice kind of black line that kind of leads from that air vent along there. This doesn't have the blue flash down it that some i4s have, or you can option, and I'm pleased about that. I don't think we should make a big fuss about it being electric, so I like the fact that it does look, as I say, just like a 4 Series Grand Coupe. You get your obligatory shark fin aerial at the back of the roof there, and it all sweeps down into this lovely kind of flowing fastback here. But yeah, as I say, they haven't done anything different to the eDrive35 to differentiate it from the other i4s that are out there. And round the back it's the same story, as I say, apart from of course your eDrive35 badge there, which of course you can delete if you do want it, which was always a very popular choice with company car drivers way back when, to make sure they make you think that their 318i was really actually a 325i. Anyway, as I say, nice big fastback here that kind of swoops back in with this kind of slightly kind of stuck on spoiler on top of the boot lid here. Your i4 badge there, some nice LED rear tail lights, your big BMW roundel there with the blue flash again around it, and then some diffuser action at the bottom. And of course you would have had exhaust pipes on a combustion engine car, it's just diffuser here. So no surprises. As I say, the styling of BMW, dare I suggest, has been controversial over the last few years, and certainly when the 4 Series came out, a lot of people were like, oof, taken aback by that big double kidney grille at the front. But familiarity is now getting us used to it, or certainly that's my opinion. But what's yours? Do you like it? Do you think it's a good looking car? Would it tempt you with the looks? Is it BMW enough for you? Have BMW still gone a bit too wacky with that front end, and you prefer something a little bit more sort of like fluid, sort of like looking, let's say, like the Tesla Model 3, or dare I suggest a bit more stylish like a Polestar 2, or even something a bit more avant-garde like a Hyundai Ioniq 6? As always, let me know in the comment section down below. Now obviously boot space remains the same, and that is 400 170 litres of boot space when you open up the rear fastback. In fairness as well, the fastback makes it a little bit more practical to get things in and out, like you do get with, say, the new Volkswagen ID7 and of course the Polestar 2, which you don't get in things like the Tesla Model 3. Got to get it through a narrow boot opening. Still, never mind. You've got a standard 40-20-40 split rear seat, which means you can obviously knock the sort of like the centre section down if you've got a load through. You know, if you've got a longer load and you still want to carry 2 rear passengers, that's fine. There is storage for cables underneath here, and there's one cable bag in here, but this car has the Harman Kardon sound system fitted, so the other cable bag lies in the boot. But it's not the end of the world, because obviously you might not take your cables around with you all the time. And in fairness, the boot is big enough to get, you know, our suitcases in, which I'll show in a second. The downside, however, unlike most of the cars in the class, there's no under bonnet storage up at the front, so you can't utilise that area, unfortunately. So, you know, that's it. This is what your practical side is. But as I say, it's not a bad size. So if we put that cable down there, we get a medium one in there. A large suitcase goes in there. One of the carry-ons in there. And then the other one as well goes down the side there, and you can still fit that cable bag in there if you do want to take it. So yeah, it's not bad at all. It's good enough, I would suggest. And if you're coming from, say, like a BMW 3 Series or another 4 Series and you're going electric for the first time and you're sticking with BMW, this is what you expect. But of course, if there is a downside to Practicality, it's probably in the back. Now, in fairness, it isn't bad back here, and for 4 people you'd be all right. It's just that it doesn't feel as commodious as the other cars in its class, and that's obviously partly due to the fact that it is spun from a combustion engine car platform. You've got this really high centre console, centre tunnel here, if you like, that runs through, which means it's almost impossible to get a third person on the back here unless their feet are straddling that, and that makes it really uncomfortable and quite tight in here. But as I say, for 4, it's all right. You are starting to find the roof, even me at 5'8", I'm starting to find this start to encroach on me a little bit. Although it's scalloped out at the back for headroom, it's just the fact that even when you're sitting here and you're kind of looking forward, you're aware that that bit is a bit lower and you do feel a bit more kind of claustrophobic. Legroom's okay for me sitting behind myself, and again, as I say, I'm 5'8", so not exactly a tall person. So again, you know, if you had a sort of like a child sitting behind you and you weren't, you know, sort of like over the kind of 6 foot mark, then, you know, it's fine. Or a small adult like me, then that's going to be okay. But yeah, others do it better in the class, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, what have you got right back here? Well, of course, you get the nets on the backs of the seats. You've got a couple of USB-C ports there. You've got rear climate control here, because you've got a couple of face vents there. Storage-wise, in the centre, of course, you've got your obligatory cup holders there for water bottles, which is good. And as I say, you can flip that down as well if you want to put a longer load through. So, as I say, it's fine in terms of if it's for 4, if it's just got sort of like children back here or smaller adults. If you need space for 5, or, you know, certainly you're carrying 4 adults that are quite tall, longer distances, I would suggest the i4 isn't the best for it. Now, as I said before, we've done road tests on i4s before, the M50 and the eDrive40, so I don't want to just harp on about loads of stuff in here, because it's pretty much as you know, nothing's changed over those cars. But if you haven't seen those road tests, I will quickly go through it. Now, interestingly, one thing, the last time we had an i4 on the channel, the eDrive40, and we were putting it up against the Tesla Model 3 and the Polestar 2, my colleague Charlie made quite an interesting comment, and he said it was sort of like the combination and the juxtaposition of this kind of modern kind of dashboard here, but then the kind of old school BMW here, he felt was a bit of a mismatch. You know, whereas on the more modern BMWs like the i7, the iX, the iX1, you know, with the sort of like the, you know, the new dashboard displaying the kind of the more kind of, dare I suggest, simplified centre consoles. they maybe work a little bit better. It does feel like they've taken the old full series dashboard and stuck the new sort of like screens on it. So I do understand what he's talking about, but the upside of that means that it's very familiar BMW, and therefore if you're coming from an older BMW, this will feel very much at home to you. You will really appreciate a lot of the things in here. The first thing to talk about, actually, rather than the screens, is the driving position, which is absolutely fantastic. You sit really low down in the car in these lovely sort of like figure-hugging sports seats that you get with the M Sport, and which can adjust. The squab can adjust for length, you know, so you get good support under your thighs. You've got good lateral support down your sides. There's an adjustable head restraint, and of course the steering wheel will also adjust, albeit manually, for reach and for rake to give you the sort of like the perfect driving position. So that's all very, very good. All the controls also fall very, very easily to hand, and as you can see, they are physical controls. They're physical buttons. You've physically got to press them to make something work, you know, so they're not touch sensitive like obviously you get in say the Volkswagen car products and some other cars, which is really, really good. And there is enough physical buttons to be sort of getting on with. So of course you've got the sort of like the controls around the steering wheel, you know, so you have cruise control there and your kind of media controls on the right. Your light switches are down by my right knee, they're down there. Of course you've got window controls on the door panel, and then grouped round here, whilst they're moving away from the controller on the iX1, it's just the touch screen, you still get that sort of like iDrive rotary controller here, which actually is probably one of the best you can use, in fairness, that's around. Or you can simply use it just as a touch screen, depending obviously on what you want. You know, you can just, you know, choose, you know, whatever it is you need, and there's loads of, there is a lot of things in that screen. That's the only thing. A lot of tiles, you know, you go through it. I mean, gosh, look at all that. So it does take a bit of kind of setting up, you know, all things that go in there. You get wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto's in there as well, so that's good. I do like that, and it obviously connects up well. The nav system is excellent. You've got a really good head-up display as well, which you can configure and adjust as you can with the actual main dashboard display in front of you. So if you want to change how that actually looks, you can do that via the buttons on the steering wheel, which is great. And then sort of like coming back to down round about here, you've got the shortcut buttons for the sort of like the controller. So to jump straight to media, you've got a button, a home screen button, to go straight to map, to go straight to navigation, or straight to telephone. So all of that is there, and then a back button.
Where should we go?
Oh, cancel. You also get voice activation as well, which I'll talk about a little bit later.
Where would you like to go to? Sorry, I didn't quite hear that again.
Cancel.
Okay.
There we go. That's a bit better. Heating and ventilation controls. They're on the screen. So you only get sort of like two physical controls for them, and that's sort of the maximum defrost for the front screen and the heated rear screen. But again, what's okay with these is they're constantly on. So, you know, they are there, they're always there. So it's nice that you've always got them, and you can just jump straight to them. So I do quite like that, but be aware they are in the screen. You can have a more sort of in-depth climate control menu if you want. So you want to direct sort of like, you know, sort of like the fan speed, you can increase it or decrease it with that one there. You know, sync everything up, you know, different fan speed on one side than the other, put it across there. So again, you can go into that and really set it up a little bit more individually for you. Or as I say, you just adjust your temperature, flick it on auto and then leave it, which is done via this always on screen. So there we go. So as I say, there's not a huge amount to discuss that hasn't been discussed before. It is as you'd expect to find it. Storage is all right. We've got the option of a wireless charging pad, which is in there. That comes in one of the packs. That's down in there. There's a USB-A connector there. There's two cup holders, as you see, that can go in there. You can cover that up if you don't want it, but you are kind of finished with this shiny gloss black, piano black thing, which I don't particularly like. Your transmission lever is just this toggle switch here, which again we're kind of used to on sort of like, you know, on EVs now, so that's fine. And there's a center console with a USB-C charging port in there. Good sized door bins. They're not really lined, but the thick rubber on them, and a decent sized glove box. So yeah, look, it's typical BMW. It's all right. There's enough physical controls, as I say, that doesn't make it too complicated to use. You know, volume control here, it's duplicated up here, and your cruise control and all that kind of stuff. But the operating system now, the BMW operating system that they've got in it, is very, very good. And we've seen it on the other BMWs, and I really get on with it well, and I do think it's one of the better ones on the market. But the main thing I think you take away from the i4 is the driving position and the driving environment as a driver. You know, you do feel that you're really properly in control, and it does go back to the sort of like the old-fashioned BMWs and, you know, some of the M models, where you do feel that you kind of, as a driver, you're really sitting in the car and everything's there for you, and it's really easy to get the car to perform well. So, as I say, others do a more modern and more technical and, dare I suggest, more sort of like stylish interior, but BMW, in terms of its usability and what you've maybe been coming from and what you've been used to, this is a really good interior. Now, as I said earlier, as well as a less powerful motor, the i4 eDrive35 gets a smaller battery. The eDrive40 battery is just over 80 kilowatt hours. This is a usable capacity of 67 kilowatt hours, and that should give, according to WLTP figures, a range of just under 290 miles. But what I will say is that at the moment it's currently sitting at 76% charge, and it's showing 147 miles. Still, it is cold at the moment. As I say, we're in sort of like in February time at the moment. Still, charging speeds are quite good, 180 kilowatts charging speed, and it also comes with an 11 kilowatt on-board charger, which means, of course, if you've got that three-phase electricity at home, with sort of the more powerful wall box, then of course the car is equipped to deal with it. If you are charging up from a more likely 7 kilowatt wall box, however, you're going to go from flat to full in 10 hours 45 minutes, according to BMW's figures. So as well as the eDrive35 having a smaller battery to the eDrive40, it also gets a less powerful motor. 286 brake horsepower as opposed to the 340 odd of the eDrive40. So it gives away about 60 horsepower, meaning a 0 to 60 time is around about 6 seconds. So we'll call it swift rather than blindingly fast. But don't for a second think that that means that this is the poor relation, because all the other qualities that are present in the eDrive40 are here with this car. A beautifully poised chassis, well-judged spring and damper ratings, excellent steering, beautifully balanced turning, and of course the rear drive chassis, which is what we really like about the eDrive40, and as I say, it's here in the eDrive35 as well. These are better cars, I think, as a driver's car than the M50. It almost feels with the M50 that the power sort of overwhelms the chassis. You don't get that feeling here. You do not get that feeling in either the 35 or the 40. They are just right. You know, it never feels like the car is going beyond its capabilities, and that's what makes us prefer these less powerful i4s over the big M50. Let's talk a little bit about the sort of like the driving experience of the i4, because it is worth talking about a little bit more, as much as we've driven the cars before. The relationship you have as a driver with the car is what we've come to expect from BMW over the years, and it's no different here. You sit down in the car. There's a good range of adjustment in the seat, don't get me wrong, you can heighten it up if you want to sit higher, but you sit down in the car rather than on the car. The steering wheel, it adjusts for reach and for rake. The pedals are dead ahead of you. You've got a nice footrest for your left foot as well, so there's good foot placement. The weight of the controls, which is something that I'm very, very sort of like, conscious of in cars. In other words, you know, sort of like the throttle pedal, it doesn't feel electrically sharp, and the brake pedal feels really heavy. They're both balanced. They both have a really nice balance between them, and the weighting of them feels pretty much like they would in a combustion engine car. So one of the things that that you sometimes get with the Tesla, it takes a lot of time to get used to. It's that really sharp kind of throttle response. You don't have that here with the i4. So if you're moving into an electric, a BMW from a combustion engine one, it will drive very familiar to you. There won't be a massive change for that. The steering, beautifully oily. It just feels, as soon as you turn the wheel, the car changes direction, and it allows you to place it really, really well in corners. And when you do get to those corners, as I say, so the way the car just remains nice and kind of flat through the bend is excellent. You've got enough feel, there's enough sort of movement in the car that you know what's happening. You're not devoid of sort of like, you know, what is going on with the car. But as I say, it just stays nice, it stays flat, it just feels like a proper BMW sports saloon. And they've done it. They've turned a great BMW saloon into an electric BMW saloon, and that works great. Let's talk about the brakes a little bit. They are quite sharp at first. My wife drove the car the other day and she made that comment, but I do think a lot of that was due to the fact she normally drives her big Jeep, which has got quite a heavy kind of, sort of like ponderous kind of pedals on them. And when she moved the BMW and she drove it first, and she went, oh, the brakes took her by surprise. And they do initially, I think, but as I say, once you kind of get used to them, they've just got that, oh yeah, it's a really nice feel, and it's all the way down. It never changes the actual pedal feel. You just go all the way through, and it's lovely. It's a lovely, just a mechanical feel to the car, and that's why I like the drive of the i4, and as I say, the lesser powered ones. Now, this car's got the 18-inch alloy wheels on it. As I say, the sport model starts with the 17s, and you can upgrade to 19s. I think these are probably the choice. I think you can just feel the ride quality, as with most BMW kind of M Sports, just on the slightly firmer side. Not uncomfortable, just slightly firmer. And I think if you went for a bigger alloy wheel with less of a tyre sidewall, you would just lose that compliancy, I think. I think it would just tip it over the edge. So personally, I think these work well. The 18 inches work well in this car. It runs Hankook tyres, which seem to grip well. They seem to be nice. They seem to do, it's quite wet on the road today, so it does seem that they've got a lot of grip in them, which I quite like as well, so that's good. You've obviously got different driving modes. Sorry, it's this usual width restriction that I just go through there. There we go. You've got your usual driving modes with the car. Yeah, you've got Eco Pro with BMW, Comfort, which is the default setting, and then you've got two sport settings. So you standard sport or sport individual. In other words, you can set the car up how you want it. They're very easily accessed. There's just 3 buttons down here: Sport, Comfort and Eco Pro, and if you want the sport individual, you just press the sport button twice, and obviously everything just kind of sharpens up a little bit, and you go into that. It doesn't really change sort of like the seats or anything like that, like it does in some of the higher grade BMWs. It doesn't pull them in or anything like that. The seats don't need that, they're excellent anyway, but as I say, everything just kind of sharpens up a little bit, and you just get that slightly kind of sharper throttle response and that quicker acceleration. I have to say, it feels quicker than the numbers suggest. It does feel a little bit quicker than the numbers suggest, but it's a good car, this. There's a lot to criticise about sort of like BMW's electric offerings since they did away with the i3, in terms of, they haven't really done anything, sort of like radical like the i3 was. They've just electrified BMW saloons. Yeah, they have, and I think that's a good thing, because why mess with something that's already very, very good? Take something that's good and electrify it, and that's what they've done. Yes, there's compromises to make. Yes, it's not as radical, as I say, as the i3 or even the iX, as controversial as that is. But when they drive like this, what's there to complain about? The last thing I'll say about the drive of the car is its refinement, which is excellent. It's a beautifully quiet car. As I say, because the suspension is well done, you can feel the road surface, but as I often say, not uncomfortably so. It's enough communication, and that's it. It doesn't jolt you over like expansion joints, but you know that they're there. But there's no wind noise even with these frameless windows. Frameless doors. There's no extraneous wind noise. Tyre noise is well suppressed. This is one area where this i4 really does stand apart, I think, from other cars in its class. This is a good car. Now, all the way through this review, I have tried to steer away from using the term base model, because when it comes to price, the i4 eDrive35 is anything but basic. You see, if you want to get into this car, then you're going to need to find yourself £50,755. to get it in the sport mode. If you want the M Sport like this, it's just over £52,000. But if you want it with the equipment that this car has on it, and to be fair, it's not overly loaded with options, it's over £60,000. Now, that's a problem, I think. And it's a problem because of what's parked there. Because as you can see, what's parked over here is a BYD seal. And it's the BYD seal Excellence, which means it's dual motor, which means it's all-wheel drive, and it's more powerful than the BMW, and it has a bigger battery than the BMW, which means that it goes further than the BMW, and it also costs £12,000 less than the BMW. But here's the question: would you rather drive a BMW or a BYD? Well, the answer to that question is going to happen in next week's episode as I put these two sports saloons head to head to find out the answer, to give you the definitive verdict on what we think is the best of these two cars. But until then, all that remains for me to say is thank you ever so much for watching another episode of AutoEV. As always, please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Then once you've done that, make sure you press the little bell button down below, because then that way you'll get a notification of when our next video is uploaded and gone live. As I say, next week's twin test between these two. If you've enjoyed this week's episode on the new BMW i4 eDrive35, then please do give it a thumbs up, and of course don't forget, leave us your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let me know what you think about the cars we're reviewing, such as the new BMW i4 eDrive35, and of course on the AutoEV channel as a whole. Now don't forget, we're also across all social media platforms, so Facebook, X, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, so please give us a follow there as well, because that does help us too. And maybe you're new to us, or you've watched a couple of videos and you're still trying to figure out what this little fat Scotsman's talking about. Well, stick on the YouTube channel, because we've got plenty more videos. In fact, every new electric car that hits the UK market, we put through the full AutoEV road test to give you the definitive verdict of whether or not it's worth spending your money on it or not. So as I say, you're into electric cars, this is the place to be. All that remains for me to say is thank you ever so much for watching again. Hopefully, I'll see you next week.